The storm that tested a family. A new home. A new life. For James, too deep, and the little girl they called Nee, it felt like the fragile beginning of a dream. But behind every smile lingered a fear that refused to fade. Would their love be strong enough to withstand the storm gathering just beyond the horizon? One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft shades of orange, Deep held Nee, already drifting into sleep after a day of laughter, close to her chest. Silence pressed in, broken only by a distant rooster's cry and the whisper of leaves in the wind. With trembling voice and eyes brimming, she confessed the fear she had carried for so long. "I'm just afraid that one day my child will be taken away from me." Her words struck James like a blow. He had heard this fear before, but that night it felt heavier, as though it carried all the weight of her hidden fragility. He moved closer, resting a steady hand on her shoulder. "No one will ever take Nee from us," he promised. "As long as I breathe, she will have a home, love, and safety." The new house, modest and unadorned, was to them a sanctuary. Its pale walls, plain wooden furniture, and faint scent of fresh timber became symbols of hope. In the kitchen, Deep transformed humble meals of noodles and pickled bamboo into rituals of comfort. In the yard, James planted fruit saplings with the dream that someday Nee would pluck the ripened harvest herself. And Nee, innocent, exuberant Nee, filled their world with joy. She called James father, without hesitation, each word stitching itself into the scars left by abandonment. For a while, it felt like happiness could withstand anything, but shadows rarely wait long. The fragile peace. Outside their fragile bubble of warmth, storms were already forming. James's company was buckling under financial strain. Investors withdrew. Former partners plotted in secret. Contracts teetered on collapse. At home, he tried to hide the fatigue carved into his face. But Deep noticed. In the quiet of night, when Nee slept, she would whisper, "You don't have to fight alone." "I'm here." Those words steadied him more than balance sheets ever could. Still, the balance of their lives was precarious. Sweetness inside the home, bitterness just beyond the door. And then came John. Rumors and shadows. John was no stranger, an old business partner turned rival, the kind of man who thrived on whispers and poison. He had discovered Nee's story and wasted no time sowing doubt. Does James really have the right to raise the child? Where is her true family? What happens if they return to claim her? The venom traveled fast, reaching the village and eventually Deep's ears. That night, her voice shook as she asked James, What will happen if someone tries to take her from us? I couldn't bear it. James cupped her face in his hands, his voice firm, tender. Listen to me. They can attack me in business. They can spread lies, but no one will take me. Against this home, I will fight until the end, but fear lingered. At school, Nee was asked by other children why she didn't live with her real parents. Confused, she came home and whispered to Deep, "Mama, will I have to go away someday?" The words broke her heart. She held Nee tight, hiding her tears. "No, my love. This is your home. You belong here." Meanwhile, James learned the truth. John wasn't just gossiping. He had begun reaching out to Nee's distant relatives, people who had long ignored her but now saw an opportunity. The storm was no longer just a threat. It was on their doorstep, a battle for family. James consulted a trusted lawyer, laying bare every detail. Nee's abandonment, her parents' refusal to care for her, the grandparents' rejection, and the years she had already spent with them. The lawyer nodded gravely. The law can be cruel. But it can also recognize love. If we prove that you are her true family, the ones who raised her, protected her, we have a real chance. As the paperwork advanced, Deep doubled down on love. Every trip to the market, every meal, every bedtime story became a quiet declaration: "You are my daughter." You have a home, but even love couldn't silence her recurring fear. Some nights, after Nee drifted into dreams, she would whisper again against James's chest. "I'm so afraid that one day my child will be taken away," and every time, he answered with the same conviction. "Neither you nor Nee will ever be taken from me. If I must fight enemies, courts, even the past itself, I will." It was not just a promise. It was a vow. The return of John. The storm broke with John's reappearance. He wasn't subtle. Men lurked near their property at night. Neighbors whispered about strange faces watching the road. One evening, James spotted two figures prowling the yard. By the time he shouted, they were gone. It wasn't an attack, it was a warning. The next morning, Deep trembled as she asked, "He sent them, didn't he?" James didn't deny it. "Yes. But it was only a message. He wants us afraid." "James," she whispered, clutching his hand, "what if he tries to take her?" His jaw tightened. "I swear to you, it will never happen." A meeting of enemies. The tension reached its peak when John summoned James to a cafe. The meeting was no negotiation, it was a trap set with venom. "I know about the girl," John said, his smile sharp as a blade. "She's not yours. I could convince her family to reclaim her. Imagine Deep's pain. Imagine the headlines. Unless, of course, you hand over your contracts, your projects, maybe even your company. James's fists clenched under the table. His voice, however, was steady. You disgust me. Using a child as a weapon? She is not a business deal. She is my daughter. John leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. We'll see if the courts, the press, and your investors agree. James stood, his decision already made. Destroy my company if you want. But Nee stays with us. That's not negotiable. Love is resistance. That night, James returned to find Deep on the porch, Nee already asleep inside. He embraced her tightly, whispering into her hair. The storm is coming, but this time we will face it together. In the stillness of that embrace, he realized something profound. Happiness was never about living without storms. It was about standing firm when they arrived. James, the businessman hardened by cold negotiations, had learned that true power wasn't in numbers or deals. It was in the embrace of a child who trusted him without question. Deep, fragile yet unyielding, proved that love's truest form was vulnerability, the courage to remain despite the fear of loss. And Nee, with her innocent laughter and quiet questions, had become the anchor of their lives, the reason they would fight to the end. The lesson of the storm: in life, storms are inevitable. What matters is not their force but the hands we choose to hold when they rage. James could have walked away. He could have protected only himself. But instead, he chose to fight, not just for a company, but for a family built not by blood, but by love. Deep's greatest fear, that one day my child will be taken away, was not weakness. It was proof of how deeply she loved. And together, the three of them discovered the truth: family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by choice, by courage, and by the decision to stay. No storm could take that away.